Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are live from Los Angeles and we are going to talk about watches. We are actually picking up on a thread that we left loose from last night. The full list of watches that are curated for the Jupiter Art of Time auction are now listed since the auction actually started as well. And I think it is lasting for about 12 days, closing in 11 days, 9 hours, and 49 minutes as we speak. I think I'm just going to start with a couple of things that I posted on Instagram today, and we will warm up using that and go on with our usual watch talk. I might possibly go on until midnight, and to do that, I have set up a goal a little bit different this time. Anything more than 199 counts. So if I get 10 super chats like that, I will be live until midnight and possibly beyond. You should always feel free to jump on if you like. These conversations are always much more valuable and much more entertaining when someone is on the panel, when I don't necessarily do a stream of consciousness kind of live stream, a monologue of sorts. Again, I have a lot of fun listening to my own voice and just talking about watches endlessly without being interrupted in any way. But that being said, it's always more entertaining for me and for everyone else in the audience when someone else is there with me on the panel. And the link is already there, and I'm going to pin it now if I haven't done that already. And I am right now looking at the first post of the day, which is a golf-related and Australia-related post. So I'm hoping that I was able to appease, to some extent, my friend and frequent collaborator, Aussie Expat, at Aussie Expat Watches on YouTube. So feel free to check out his channel and subscribe to him as well. This is Min Woo Lee of Australia during a practice round yesterday, prior to the beginning of the 153rd Open Championship in Portrush, Northern Ireland. The so-called British Open has started today, and this young Australian brings a lot of spirit on to the golf court, and also an interesting watch. You guys know that Joopiter has made quite a noticeable push in terms of endorsing a number of tennis players, including Jessica Pegula, Emma Navarro, Tommy Paul, usually Americans. And it seems they're also making an analogous effort on the golf court as well. And it's almost invariably the DB28XS, which I think is the perfect watch for the purpose. Of course, Joopiter's own patented shock protection systems, I think, provide the right ergonomics for the situation. And this particular piece, which is smaller in diameter than the average Joopiter watch, it's I think 39 millimeters roughly and 7.5 millimeters in thickness. And that's the wear of the watch is only enhanced by the fact that, one, it's rendered in grade 5 titanium, and two, it has those pierced floating lugs, which when strapped on allows the watch to wear as closely to your wrist as possible. And at 7.5 millimeters of thickness, that's pretty good too. So he's wearing the DB28 XS Starry Seas. This is Minwoo Lee of Australia, who is playing in the Open as we speak. The next one I have is actually two brothers, a pair of watches, the two heirs of the Luxottica empire. Leonardo Del Vecchio passed away a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my mind, in 2022. And these two young men are basically leading the empire now. This is a photo from about 4 years ago, when they were hosting through Persol the award celebration in the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival. Rocco Basilico usually wears very interesting pieces. For the most part, sticks to Rolex, and obviously he's a big fan of the Daytona. So he's wearing the 116506 with the luminous version of the ice blue dial. So from the previous series, he's wearing the Platona, so to speak, the Daytona in platinum. I think it's a very nice, beautifully balanced piece. I actually like the diamond dial version from this series quite a bit. I think having that as a pure glacier blue dial without the maroon rings for the chronograph registers makes for a much more unique look. In the new series, of course, in addition to all the new embellishments, so to speak, that Rolex came up with, of which probably the bezel ring in which the Cerachrome bezel is set is the most significant, at least visually speaking. They have also refreshed the diamond dial version of the Platinum Daytona, which also has the corresponding outer rings for the subdials that match the tachymeter bezel. So it's less unique, although obviously that baguette cut diamond execution of the hour markers, I think, is something that Rolex has always done really well, exceptionally well, if I might say so. However, Leonardo Maria Del Vecchio, who is president of Ray-Ban and chief strategy officer for Essilor-Luxottica, he's wearing arguably the more interesting piece, because it is the Patek Philippe World Time Moon, namely the reference 5575G, and that's, as you can see from the last two numbers in that reference, it's one of those limited editions that were released in 2014 to celebrate the 175th anniversary of the classic Geneva watchmaker. It was a limited edition released in a run of 1,300 pieces. Continues the celestial theme that has been quite important to Patek Philippe, at least in the 21st century, you might say, since their release of the Star Caliber 200, their most complicated watch to date, specifically in that year. And it uniquely combines the world time complication, which has obviously become one of the signatures of the house in their modern days, with a moon phase indicator that actually is uniquely installed or integrated into the center of the dial, which has the look of a starry sky. So you have that moon that seemingly floats around in that dial center as it indicates different phases of the moon. And the case is also a different design than what you see in most of the contemporary Patek world timers. It has this sort of scooped, scalloped, twisted, or lyre lug design. As you can see here, there's like a little bit of twist there on the lugs of that white gold case. It doesn't show in the single frame composition, but the back is actually a solid case back with the watch inscribed to commemorate the 175th anniversary, with, of course, Patek's founding date, founding year, I should say, and of course the year of the edition. (1839 to 2014). What happened, Bob? What does this mean? So if you would follow me on Instagram and like and comment on some of these posts, I would very much appreciate it. Yeah, I don't get it. I guess I'm missing an inside joke there, Bob, but thanks for sharing. Now, maybe I should talk a little bit about some of the new releases that have intrigued me for a little bit. And if we ever reach our goal, I also have the GPHG nominees lined up, the so-called Oscars of the horological world, which have the long list of nominees announced already for a few days. But the gala, of course, is coming up in the fall, so still a few months away. They're going to whittle down that list to a final, to the finalists, so to speak, to the final list of nominees, and go from there to actually pick one in each category. I wanted to look first at something quite unique. You guys know I'm a huge fan of the Russian watchmaker Konstantin Chaikin, and you probably know of his collaborations with Louis Erard, which is a small brand that usually makes regulator dial layout watches, regulator watches, you know, where you have basically at the center of its time telling a central minute hand and an independent our hands, and the dials are usually quite balanced in that way with, for example, in this particular case, with the subdial for hours at around 12 o'clock and a subdial for seconds or small seconds subdial at 6. This time meter collaboration, I think, is by now in its third iteration, and it basically brings together Louis Erard's regulator look with the feel vibe of the Rismon's series for Konstantin Chaikin, which of course started with that famous googly-eyed Joker watch. This time, the interesting part is that they have not only the standard regulator version, which has a relatively large 42 millimeter in diameter polished stainless steel case, but also one with tourbillon, which in fact has at 6 o'clock a tourbillon cage that retains the same design aesthetic, but obviously has kind of an open-worked cage for that regulatory device with actually a seconds hand pivoting on that bridge as well. Now the pricing, of course, is considerably higher for the tourbillon version. The Time Eater 3 is priced right around 4.5K in Swiss francs. So I think what does that make in US dollars? $5.5 in US dollars. And then for the tourbillon, you have a 19,900, so almost 20,000 in Swiss francs, which makes roughly 25,000 in US. Now that's of course a considerable amount of money for Louis Erard watch, and even for Konstantin Chaikin collaboration, but it's actually not a bad price point for a Swiss-made tourbillon. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but Bob NYC, thank you so much. Thank you for your support. $4.99. Sorry, that was not meant for you. Here's a super chat apology and support. No apology necessary. I don't know. I didn't realize what was going on for the large part. That's all. I'm kind of, not kind of, I mean, I've been through all this time rather disconnected from all the drama and internal stirrings of the live stream world for a few months, and that made me lose a lot of steam and a lot of momentum on YouTube, of course. But keeping away from it wasn't so bad after all. It certainly was good for my mental health as I was dealing with all sorts of family issues as well. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And no apology necessary. I don't know. I didn't take it onto myself at any rate. I just didn't understand. Coming back to the Louis Erard tourbillon, this is actually not the first tourbillon watch that they have made. They certainly had one that they had released in collaboration with Alain Zilberstein, if I'm not mistaken. And it was, honestly, it was a very interesting piece, and I think more or less at the same price point as well. Let me see if I can. Maybe I don't need to pull that up, but the movement is made by Olivier Maury, who is a movement maker who has worked in the past with Celita and Val Fleurier, Celita being the famous maker of ETA clone movements, and Val Fleurier being basically the quote-unquote in-house / manufacturer movement maker for the Richemont group. And I believe they still share their facilities with Montblanc's watchmaking division. Olivier Maury works since 2016 under the name BCP Tourbillon. And it's basically an all Swiss-made movement that supplies a low-cost tourbillon wristwatch caliber to mostly independent watchmakers. On paper, at least, 100% of its components of this tourbillon are Swiss-made, which is quite different from the usual array of low-cost tourbillons, which usually rely on part, or in part rather, or entirely on outsourcing, often made in China. Again, that in and of itself, that may not mean much to most of us, but when you compare labor costs, obviously, in terms of transparency, it's an important question, right? Whether you make something in part or in whole in China and then market it as largely Swiss-made, or if you actually make something Swiss-made, obviously the value, and not only perceived value, is quite different in those two objects, in those two watches. The escapement components of this movement, which is called BCP-T02, are actually manufactured by Atocalpa, which is part of that Fleurier watchmaking system that has been supported by the Sandoz Family Foundation, namely Parmigiani Fleurier, Vaucher, and Atocalpa, and many other moving pieces of that large ecosystem. So it's an interesting offering, honestly, under 20,000 in Swiss francs for a very boldly designed, unique Swiss-made tourbillon wristwatch, under 25K in US dollars. And just like the earlier collaborations, there is a 42 millimeter stainless steel time meter that's coming out at the same time as well. And the website basically has I think, a waiting list, or rather an alert for when these pieces are coming out. The tourbillon is limited to 78 pieces, and I believe so is the standard time meter 3 regulator. No, that's 178 pieces. All right. These have been quite popular, and I'm sure they will sell out quite quickly. And they also have other variations of the piece, and even sets. So all those might be interesting avenues to pursue if they are still in stock. Which I don't think is the case for the earlier editions. All right, so that was the Louis Erard Konstantin Chaikin collaboration. Hey, Chalk flew up. Nice to see you, man. I'm happy to be on here as well. I really appreciate the support too. It matters a lot. Again, as you guys know, I consult people on their watch collections, as well as on discrete purchases. I have been very fortunate to grow my platform on Instagram significantly as well, but nothing really compares, at least at my very humble level of following, the kind of cash flow that YouTube can at least potentially generate. And of course, these super chats, the memberships that you might buy or gift, as well as other ways in which you can support the channel. And the links, the appropriate links for that, are all in the description, video description, are invaluable to me on a day-to-day basis. But again, the most essential, simple, and free way of supporting me is, one, always subscribing to the channel yourself, hitting the like button, sharing the link with other collectors and watch enthusiasts, and helping me grow the community here and on Instagram. And that's always, always invaluable. So the other watch that I wanted to look at is a limited edition, apparently a France exclusive, by Tag Heuer. The Carrera that is made in 500 pieces, exclusive to the French market. If you're a vintage Heuer freak, you will already recognize the aesthetics of this watch, of this chronograph. Because it essentially looks like that classic watch they made for the Abercrombie and Fitch, of course, which was at the time, in the 50s, still an upscale American sporting goods company, and not simply a fashion outlet. So they would sell all sorts of tools, in addition to, of course, clothing, that were dedicated to sports. So the seafarer, with its maritime colors and theme as well as complication, was one of those famous pieces, in addition to the Sol Lunar, which are a throwback to this time. Of course, this piece is just really an aesthetic throwback, so to speak. It is essentially the 42 millimeter Tag Heuer Carrera, made for the French market, I believe in 500 pieces. It's a very sleek looking watch with its polished bezel, the piston style pushers, the large crown, the angular lugs. I like how they look. I think 42 millimeter is a little bit too large for my aesthetic, but considering the standard of a sports chronograph, it's really not disproportionate. It's really not outrageous. In this case, you have a piece that has a very rich blue dial, kind of like a midnight blue almost. It has a 12-hour counter. The chronograph is a 12-hour counter at 9 o'clock and a 30-minute totalizer at 3, which has those distinctive colors alternating between kind of a baby blue and silver that characterize the classic seafarer. And that alternating color scheme basically divides that minute totalizer into 6 5-minute areas. So, you know, even though the watch is not exclusively or even explicitly marketed as a regatta timer, it certainly can double up that way as sort of a, since those 5-minute marks kind of support the graphic reading of the countdown in a way. Of course, at 6 o'clock, there's that crosshair style look to the continuous seconds. There is also a date window right at 6 o'clock, which gives you at least the option of having the date indicator without sacrificing symmetry. The chronograph hands, including the centrally deployed seconds hand, are rendered in yellow. Hey, Fries. Good morning to Brussels as well. It's, yeah, find me a more Belgian handle than that. Fries with mayo. Fries are my absolute favorite. I actually, you know, honestly, even though I'm vegan, sometimes I'm tempted to break it just to enjoy some mayonnaise with my fries. There was when I used to live in New Haven, there was kind of a Belgian joint, Belgian owned actually, not only Belgian inspired. You know, it was mostly a beer hall of sorts, but they had great Belgian style fries and also a whole array of dips, most of which were mayonnaise based. And at that time, I was not vegan, so I could enjoy all of that quite fully and lavishly, and that's, at any rate, that's the best vegan meal, right? Fries and beer. I'll have to spare myself the mayonnaise, but I can still have lots of ketchup and hot sauce. What's your favorite dip for the fries? Just plain old mayo? I used to love samurai. I think that's my favorite sauce. I mean, you know, we are talking about a French limited edition, so it doesn't feel entirely inappropriate to venture into Belgian matters as well. The movement of the watch is what they call TH20-00. This is just the classic Hoya 02 movement by another name. It's actually, as far as modern self-winding chronograph movements are concerned, this is one of the best, honestly. I don't usually show a lot of love to Tag Heuer, as you guys know, the contemporary brand, unless we are talking about something that was designed by Carole Forestier Cassapi, their master watchmaker, basically. But you have to give them credit where it's due, and this chronograph movement is exactly that. It's automatic, it's modern, column wheel, bidirectional winding, 80 hours of power reserve. You can barely ask for much more than that from a modern chronograph movement. The price point is right at 7,350 in euros. And again, this is exclusive to France. Will be only available for sale in France. 500 pieces. Hopefully not all spoken for just yet. I also like the strap for it, which is a rally style perforated leather strap that kind of plays with the colors of the dial. A midnight blue in general with a turquoise or like a baby blue contrast stitching. It's quite a handsome piece, honestly. Not sure if I like the price point, not sure if I like the case diameter, but those are my personal qualms. I think quite enticing as aesthetically speaking for a limited edition. The third, and for now the last new release that I want to talk about is the new Parmigiani Fleurier Tonda PF chronograph, the Tonda PF Sport. You guys know I have a soft spot for this brand, even though it hasn't had the greatest commercial success. But there's some good news because, you know, paradoxically, since the brand finally became commercially viable, the Sandoz Family Foundation actually floated the idea of selling the brand. And again, commercially speaking, obviously that's the right time. But for the Sandoz Family Foundation, from the very beginning, this was a very non-commercial affair. Essentially, it was a vehicle to support the creativity and masterful watchmaking of Michel Parmigiani to allow him to build his independent brand. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, through the years, it has basically become an entire ecosystem a wholly vertically integrated manufacturer in Fleurier, where they are building everything from minor components of a movement to a watch crystal to their own leather straps, and obviously movements, cases, everything. So of course, I understand for them to have floated that idea, but apparently they decided against it finally. Maybe they couldn't procure attractive enough of an offer. Maybe they just decided it was not the right time and have withdrawn the brand from the market. Maybe at another moment it will become available for sale again. But anyway, I'm quite happy that it's going to exist. It's going to continue to exist independently under the leadership of the brand's CEO, Guido Terreni, who has allowed the brand, I think he has been with them since 2021, joining them from Bulgaria, who has allowed the brand to actually achieve commercial success. And the release of the Tonda PF as kind of the crown on their jewel, as their integrated bracelet, sports chic watch, was at the center of that effort. And for a while, they have almost streamlined their entire selection of watches around the Tonda PF. Last year, they basically introduced a new iteration of the Toric series, which has more of a classic dress watch look. That was, I think, a very interesting release, even though for me it left certain things to be desired. The Tonda PF I always liked. I always was a big fan of. I was somewhat disappointed that they discontinued the older line of their chronographs. I was again a little disappointed that the Tonda GT, their big date watch, also went outside of the frame, so to speak. But with the complications that they have added to the Tonda PF line, and with the way they have renewed this chronograph line, I think they are finally hitting the sweet spots. And I also like the fact that they have two sizes, right? They have the 42 millimeter Tonda PF chronograph, like these three examples that you're looking at are exactly that, which has a date at 4:30, and you guys know that's a no-no for me, especially in the case of these two watches. You see, I mean, not only are you interrupting the symmetry of the dial, you are not even color matching the date wheel, at least roughly speaking, to the dominant color scheme of the watch, right? I think it just doesn't work for me. But I'm glad they also have now a 40 millimeter chronograph line, which to someone like me or anyone with a skinnier wrist is much more wearable. And it also does not have a date window, which gives you a much more balanced look on the dial. Classic 3-register chronograph look with the medallion logo, the PF medallion logo at 12 o'clock to counterbalance it somewhat visually. And then, of course, you have the skeletonized hands, the abbreviated indices, and I call them also, as you can see, in this case, it's a much more tone-on-tone look with a silvered white dial that is decorated with their classic barleycorn guilloche pattern. That has a kind of a grainy look from far, but a nice detail from the close-up. Sorry guys, I apologize. Actually, this is without date, but it actually is a case 42 millimeters in diameter and roughly 13 millimeters in thickness. Of course, it's 18 carats pink gold with a silvered white guilloche dial with a triangular pattern, not the barleycorn pattern. Again, my mistake. The bezel has their classic knurled or coin-edged decoration, which matches the pink gold case. I think everything has a beautiful multi-layered look here with that, inner bezel that's mirror polished and the classic knurled bezel, and a case that has both satin brushed elements as well as nicely detailed chamfers too. And of course, the look is of an integrated bracelet watch, but this particular model is actually complemented by a canvas style strap, a rubber strap that has a textured pattern on top with matched saddle style hand finished stitching. And the closure is a matching déployant clasp in 18 karat pink gold as well. Here's a look at the movements. That's the PF070, of course, made in-house by Vaucher. Self-winding integrated chronograph movement with column wheel and vertical clutch. It's a 5 Hertz movement, modern high frequency with 65 hours of power reserve and a 22 karat skeletonized pink gold oscillating weight that you can see there. That has kind of a sporty look in and of itself, a wheel-like look. I think this is a very handsome looking watch. Obviously at retail, the price tag is pill hard to swallow, right under 50,000 Swiss francs, which means that it's a watch that costs more than $50,000. We have talked about this in many different guises. For example, when Breguet came up, right, with their reintroduction of the Type 20 line, My apologies. And the problem obviously is when you are a less popular maker, whether you have the 250 years of legacy or not, you have to be quite conscious of what you are competing against. And obviously, when it comes to the sports chronograph, you're competing against the Daytona. And when you place yourself in the market as exactly at same point in terms of the MSRP as the Daytona in stainless steel and in precious metal, sometimes even more expensive than the Daytona, with an automatic chronograph watch that has this sort of sporty elan, you are basically shooting yourself in the foot. Yes, we all know that the Daytona trades for much higher on the secondary markets. That doesn't mean, however, that your watch almost immediately doesn't elicit a comparison at the retail price point of a Rolex Daytona. And when it's more expensive and when you are not necessarily offering much of anything extra, unless you're bringing something very special to the table, that's just a very, very tough sell, right? So maybe as a boutique maker that's truly independent and that has a level of handwork and hand finishing that's really classified at another level, you might even get away with a watch that's priced for even doubly as expensive as a stainless steel / precious metal Daytona. But I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure that this watch brings enough to the table to become an alternative to, let's say, precious metal Daytona on Oysterflex on the one hand, and an AP Royal Oak chronograph on the other. Right? For me, that's it's just not happening. Of course, again, on both ends, I know these pieces might be quite difficult to get at MSRP. The Royal Oak chronograph, if you are not married to a particular dial color, might not be that unrealistic actually as a first acquisition. But all that being said, it just sounds to me as something somewhat unrealistic as a proposition. And again, I'm saying this not from a point of personal appreciation, because I really do like Parmigiani Fleurier's pieces. That being said, I'm not sure how much thinner they can spread themselves with these offerings that essentially compete with watches that retain their value so much better. Because let's not fool ourselves, right? We all know that 2-3 years down the line, you'll find this chronograph on the secondary market for less than $25,000, $25,000 US. And that just is not very encouraging for anyone to look at this watch as anything more than a cool watch to experience and perhaps to see on someone's wrist, or to observe in one of those trade exhibitions or look at in the boutique. Ultimately, however, I don't think it's a model that can have a viable commercial success. All right, so let's take a look back at the auctions again, and actually take a full look at the Art of Time auction that's put together by Pharrell Williams's new platform, relatively new platform, I should say, because I think they have been in existence for more than 3 years now. We have looked at some of these watches yesterday. I'm going to drop the link again in the chat. So if you have any questions, any watch-related questions, or if you want me to highlight any of these particular lots, feel free to send in super chats. I think we still have a little ways to go to reach our goal. So I might just close after taking a closer look at this auction. I have discussed some of the watches yesterday, but if you want me to take a look at them again, if I'm not doing that myself, feel free to again send them in as well. I'll try to start and focus on things that I have not covered yesterday and go from there. I will actually start with the other Otsuka-Lotek. We looked at the number 6 yesterday. That's at lot 15. At lot 16, there's possibly my favorite, the number 7.5, which really exemplifies what I like about their retrofuturistic steampunk aesthetic. This is Otsuka-Lotek, for those who might not know, is the brand established by the independent Japanese watchmaker Jiro Katayama. And since the brand has been so far distributed solely in Japan and purchased via lottery that's only open to domestic buyers, it has been quite rare. The popular exposure through social media and more recently through the usual journalistic outlets has been considerable, but the actual number of watches that make the rounds, considering that they make less than 200 watches per year that are mostly still in Japan, is almost negligible. But their designs have been so interesting, so captivating, that a lot of people continue to talk about it. I've mentioned yesterday that I've still not been able to handle any of these watches myself. I know Oz, if he's in the chat, Aussie expat, has seen them, and apparently when he was has seen them in Vegas in the collection of another collector. And he has also spoken to a rep of the brand in Switzerland, which means at the very least that they have some plans of disseminating their watches, of distributing their watches beyond their own domestic market. This is a 40 millimeter stainless steel watch. I think number 7.5 was actually first released in 2023. It features a jump hour display and kind of has this look of the Jeff Barnes designs that were released by Vianney Alter, kind of the Antiqua, the classic. I forget the other model in that trilogy. Antiqua, Classic, and then yeah, maybe one of you can remind me which it was. There's the Classic, there's the Antiqua, and then there's one more design in that Jeff Barnes Vienna Altair collaboration that, of course, was practically you know, very quickly rebranded as simply Vienna Altair because of the disagreements between the two collaborators. Oh yeah, Trio, of course. That's the other watch that looks like a slab of like a hunk of metal. It's these pieces that I'm talking about, so that we are not completely this is the this is the Antiqua, which is a perpetual calendar with that design that Vienna Altair terms like a relic from a future past, and that sort of retrofuturistic design aesthetic. And the Trio is right here. Which has a calendar display. But again, obviously, in each case, both Otsukalotech and Vienna Altair's pieces obviously very much have their own character. I don't consider them analogous to each other. However, it seems like they belong at least to the same imaginary universe. So there's kind of an affinity, I think, between the aesthetic of these two brands. That being said, obviously they are both very original, and I don't think Otsukalotech copies any other brand whatsoever. Don't take me wrong. This is lot 16 of the Art of Time exhibition of an unworn example of Otsukalotech's Jump Hour watch, number 7.5, which runs on a modified Mayota 82 S5 movement, which is visible through the exhibition caseback, as you can observe here. And of course, this piece is enhanced by a jump hour module there. There's a little porthole type of look into the inner workings of the watch, other than the minute display, which is quite enlarged as well. 40 millimeter in diameter, and as you saw from the profile, a relatively thick piece too. So if you have the chance to actually look at it before making a purchase, because they sell with significant premiums on the secondary market, feel free to take a look. Captain Kirk says at $50,000, I mean, it's even more, right? Because it's like almost 50,000 in Swiss francs. They only need 10 customers to make $500,000. I don't think they're taking on the Daytona, but I see your point. I don't think they're taking on the Daytona. But honestly, you know, what are they exactly offering? You know, I mean, I can even strengthen your point by saying, again, they basically have unlimited coffers from the Sandoz Family Foundation. They, for so many years of their existence, I think Parmigiani was founded in 1996 as an independent brand. They almost didn't have to turn over a profit for 25 odd years. You know, it's ultimately, right? What they don't care, right? Forget about selling 10 pieces. They might sell 2 of each release and would still not risk, you know, folding. I see that point, but you know, ultimately, I'm trying to talk to the average person. Yes, we talk about all kinds of watches on this channel, but I know when it comes to a real decision, when it comes to a purchase, I know it usually boils down to the usual suspects, right? I want the Daytona. I can't get it. Can I get it at retail? I can't get it at retail. Can I afford it, or would I want to pay more than $30,000 for it on the secondary market? No, I wouldn't. Would I rather buy this? Also not, right? You know, so most people actually eventually end up biting the bullet and buying something on the secondary market, you know, whether it is a version of the current model or from 1 or 2 series ago. So yeah, as much as I want to decry sometimes the lack of imagination, I also have to understand, you know, people, most of us are working with limited budgets, right? From the standpoint of the brand, yeah, they're not taking on the entire industry. No one is capable of dethroning Rolex. We all know that. But that being said, you know, I can't imagine that any brand that exists with a chief executive officer can actually make what you said a reasonable goal. I can't imagine an executive saying, hey, we might be able to sell 10 examples of this and that's already $500,000, so don't worry about it. I don't think that's how they want to operate. So yes, they might not be as aspirational as wanting to take on the Daytona, but certainly they are not as humble or as content with selling less than a dozen examples of a new release. So they might actually possibly break even or something. I don't think that's how it works. So lot 16 has a pre-auction estimate in the range of 5,000 to 10,000. And as I mentioned previously, I think, I would like to see some of these pieces in person because I've never been exposed to them before making a final decision, especially since they trade with significant premiums on the secondary market. But I'm very much enamored by their designs, especially of the jump hour piece, the number 7.5 at lot 16. And as we discussed yesterday, at lot 15, they have the number 6 with the dual retrograde hand, kind of like the look of an analog pressure gauge. Again, a partially exposed movement, and this time also a date indicator as well. Octagonally placed screws, of course, make for an interesting industrial look on the bezel as well. And once again, I think the official measurement of the case diameter in this case is in fact larger, 42.6 for the number 6. And also it is a good chunk of metal, as you can see from the side view. And this is also similarly listed with an estimated value in the range between $5,000 to $10,000. An interesting proposition, I should say. Lot 14 is actually the original jumbo in gold. I'm taking a quick break. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please don't hesitate to do so. I'll be right back in a second. I'm right back. I just needed to get a drink of water. We're looking at the Art of Time auction by Joopiter. The link is there for the auction. So if you want me to highlight any particular lots, feel free to send in a number with a super chat. We are currently looking at lot 14. And number 14 is a reference 5402BA, meaning it is a version of the original Royal Oak Jumbo, the famous design from 1972, penned by Gerard Janta. Beautiful grayish dial, a champagne tinted date wheel that matches the gold tones of the case as well as the dial fixtures, the AP applied AP logo, the initials at 12 o'clock on this classic Petite Tapisserie dial. And of course, again, everything, case and bracelets, is executed in 18 carats yellow gold. One of the first 400 pieces, specifically number 395. In a green leather octagonal Royal Oak case. Pardon me. The gold version, of course, was a later addition to the lineup. I think it was introduced on the 5th anniversary by 1979. And to my understanding, there should be less than 750 examples of the original jumbo in yellow gold of the reference 5402BA. So when it comes to examples of this reference in good condition, it's actually worth taking a look. Yes, of course, the iconic, the most desirable, the aspirational, the most collectible version of the Jumbo will always be the A series, the first batch of the stainless steel Royal Oaks that were ever produced, especially one of the first 1,000 units. But as I just mentioned, you are getting something here that's even more rare than that, more precious than that, not to, if I may be allowed the pun, obviously, since this is rendered in precious metal, in yellow gold, which might be, again, from that design standpoint, perhaps a contradiction in terms, but I think vintage Royal Oak in precious metal is something that sings to me. I can tell you that. And of course, remember that these pieces were first prototyped in white gold, and the Shah of Iran actually ordered the very first example in white gold. So the more you learn, perhaps the more you can kind of make up your mind to accept that having a precious metal example of a vintage Royal Oak is not such an outrageous idea to begin with. Here, of course, we're looking at a watch that has a significantly higher estimated value than the Otsuka Lotex we were looking at just a minute ago. And here, the pre-auction estimate is set in the range between $60,000 to $80,000 US dollars for lots 14, AP Royal Oak Jumbo, reference 5402BA. Another interesting piece that we didn't look at lot 11 is a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. This is the 5-digit example. So it is essentially a white gold version of the so-called Zenith Daytona. As most of you know, when Rolex renewed its sports chronograph in 1988, it was still not producing its own chronograph movements. So as a self-winding movement, they decided to use the base of the classic Zenith El Primero caliber 400. Of course, they made a number of significant modifications, eliminating the dates, reducing the beat rate, as well as improving the shock resistance of the balance wheel. All of that being said, they still, of course, depended on the base of that movement, which was one of the first, if not the first, integrated self-winding chronograph movements in the world, hence the name. This is a white gold version. Call it a pre-Oyster Flex if you like, because it's a piece that has a white gold case with fixed end links, and it is presented on a leather strap and a matching dépliant clasp in white gold. And it has a semi-precious stone dial in sodalite which is beautifully complemented by this large-scale alligator leather strap that has a royal blue shade. Sodalite, I think, is a very nice stone that has this mottled look to it that exhibits various different shades of blue. So for anyone who likes blue as a color, it's probably one of the most popular colors. So who doesn't? It is a very attractive stone dial indeed. And it also has Arabic numerals for quarters, 15, 30, and 45 for the minutes, you might say. And then also the dial is also set with diamonds, brilliant diamonds, exactly 8 of them for the rest of the hour markers. Of course, there's the emblematic coronets at 12 o'clock. And once again, this watch is powered by caliber 4030, which is built on the base of the Zenit El Primero caliber 400. The case is in a very good condition, as you can see, with crisp and legible hallmarks behind the lugs. The case back sticker is intact as well, with the reference number still somewhat legible. So it's not a watch that's used and abused. It is rather in a very good and seemingly unpolished condition, although maybe it's lightly polished more than unpolished, but certainly not in an abusive sense that would detract from its aesthetics. John C., you're really obsessed with this point. You're gonna bang on this drum night in, night out, but I appreciate it. At least you are sticking to your guns. Woman love, Breguet man. Why not? This is lot number 11 in the Art of Time auction, which is the first exclusively watch auction put together by Joopiter. This is the auction platform founded by Pharrell Williams. And the estimated value of this Zenit-powered white gold Daytona presented on leather strap with a sodalite dial set with diamonds is in the range between $35,000 to $45,000 US dollars. I'm gonna try to choose again a piece that I did not talk about yesterday. So let's go to lot 1, which is a split-second chronograph by Blancpain. It's the classic Blancpain Viré case. A very beautiful piece that is a throwback to the era where the brand was revived by now legendary figure in the world of Swiss watches, Jean-Claude Biver, in 1982. And obviously, these sorts of classic and complicated watches were at the heart of that revival because their premise was since 1735, and that's the early the earliest year of foundation for any watchmaker. There has never been a quartz Blancpain watch, and there will never be. So these sorts of pieces were very important for them. Reference 1186, again, Viret split seconds chronograph. Very nicely patinated yellow gold case, a stepped bezel, and with a very pleasant sunburst blue dial. Very interesting look. Certainly on the more neo-vintage side of things than anything else. You have, of course, a 3-register look with a date indicator integrated into the small seconds dial at 6, a 30-minute totalizer at 3, and a 12-hour counter at 9 o'clock. Kind of a bull's head configuration where you have the split seconds pusher at 10 o'clock. Of course, the start stop at 2 and the reset at 4. For the split second chronograph, or a rattrapante as it's also called in French, or Doppelchronograph in German, you have 2 seconds hand, of course, and they move together when you start the chronograph, when you engage it with the pusher at 2 o'clock. And the split seconds pusher here at 10 o'clock allows you to basically separate them, right? So you can, in fact, time 2 events back to back, kind of 2 different laps, so to speak, for example. And obviously, that split second pusher, and that's where the name rattrapante comes from, also allows you to have the 2 hands catch up with each other as well. And reset is, of course, at 4 o'clock. Again, you have a case that's in decent condition, perhaps lightly polished, very warmly patinated, which might make it undesirable to some, but I think it's a mark of good, honest condition. Again, it's not an unpolished case, but it seems to be in decent condition. Nice stepped bezel, and that sunburst blue dial is a great complement to the yellow gold case. This is a piece from the 90s. Again, a great example of neo-vintage Swiss watchmaking. 34 millimeters in diameter. So the mastery, in fact, is here in miniaturization. Very cool piece. It's actually one of these pieces at lot number 1 that were listed without reserve. It is currently being bid at $500 with an estimated value that is in the range between 10 to 20,000 US dollars. But again, this might be one of the interesting pieces to follow in this auction, because literally it was listed with no reserve. So wherever it lands will be the price point, obviously, plus a buyer's premium and other fees potentially. Another interesting piece at number 3 is a so-called Audemars Piguet bamboo. The bamboo is a very distinctive design, an integrated bracelets watch. Here, rendered entirely in 18 karat white gold. Of course, takes its name from the design of the links of that bracelet, which look like seemingly a very tightly tied series of bamboo sticks. Kind of a blue dial that is set with diamonds. And it is a piece that is powered by the quartz caliber 2508 with an integrated bracelet, again, that would accommodate a maximum length of 7.25 inches for a wrist. The dimensions of the case are 33 by 27 for the lot 3, and AP bamboo in 18 karat white gold, quartz powered integrated piece with a dial that is set with 112 diamonds. The estimated value of lot 3 is set in the range between 15,000 to 30,000 in US dollars. At lot 6, we have a very interesting example of the classic Rolex day dates in 18 karat gold, mounted on its classic signature president bracelet. However, the champagne dial features a distinct dial that's sometimes called a pinball dial because of its unique look, with these circular applied hour markers rather than the more common batons or diamonds. In this case, we have an example that dates to 1987 that comes with box and papers, as well as its matching sales tag. Here's a closer look to that so-called pinball dial. And the reference here is a single quickset reference, the 18038, meaning that you can actually set the dates from the crown quickly. Lot 6 has an estimated value in the range between 20,000 to 30,000 US dollars. I do want to talk about a few more pieces before I take off. I think maybe I will choose 3 oddballs or maybe 4 and go from there. Lot 21 is a Rolex Air King from the previous generation. It looks largely as a simple Air King, namely the reference 116900. But it is actually a special order by the Sultanate of Amman. So it actually features on the caseback an etching of those crossed swords and the khanjar on top of them with the royal insignia above it. Again, a full set which has the outer box with the same royal Amani insignia. Essentially offered in a new old stock condition with the full set of its accessories. This particular example of the Air King, again, goes back to the previous generation, 116900, but uniquely features the Amani Khanjar etched on the caseback. This is lot 21 from the Art of Time auction on Joopiter, and it has an estimated value set in the range between 10 to 15,000 US dollars. And obviously, it's an interesting piece. It's, of course, for purposes of authentication, it's much more compelling proposition than most other examples you can find on the market, since it's a full set. But of course, the more modern versions of these special orders are usually much less desirable than the classic watches that carry similar Arabic dials or the Khanjar insignia, UAE, Kuwait, and other logos. But of course, since that logo is not on the dial, they're not as visually unique and striking, so they don't demand the kind of premiums that vintage examples of khanjars and Arabic dials more broadly command in the market. So that's something, of course, to keep in mind. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. That really helps. I think I have maybe a few more watches to discuss before the end of tonight. We are looking here at a mini Royal Oak offshore, the reference 77151 at lot 22. Stainless steel presented on a leather strap. It's from the 90s, 30 millimeters in diameter. And again, we know the offshore, of course, as the so-called beast, but quite differently from my Royal Oak on the leather strap. I have the 14800. This watch is not only smaller, but also has its signature design elements, especially on its rubber-clad crown, as well as the exposed rubber gasket between the tonneau monocoque case and the octagonal bezel as well. This particular series is quite colorful and playful. Here it has a bright orange dial that is, in this case, matched with kind of like a lime green strap. The piece is executed in stainless steel. And again, the reference number is 77151. I think there are less than 250 examples across all the different dial colors for this series, which I think there's this orange, there's a purple, there's a green, and I believe there's also some shades of blue and brown as well. Most of the series, I believe, is made in stainless steel. I have not seen any precious metal examples in person, but I've seen photographs of them, so they do exist as well. This is a very cool and quirky piece, kind of a mini Royal Oak offshore. I think it's a little too much with this particular strap color when it's matched with the orange dial, but kind of like a dark brown or even chocolate brown strap, I think it could be like a very fun, quirky piece to wear for a young woman. I can certainly see it like a very interesting alternative to the so-called mini Royal Oaks, which are of course much more jewelry-like and more recent releases. And I also like these pieces because, again, as miniature as they are, this reference is actually powered by a self-winding movement, the caliber 2140. So there's that. I consider that obviously superior to today's mini Royal Oak, which is quartz powered, but that's just me. This is lot 22. The AP Mini Royal Oak Offshore, reference 77151, with the orange dial, presented on a leather strap that has a lime green color, and the estimated value is set in the range between 10 to 20,000 US dollars. Lot 23 is a very interesting octagonal Jarajanta piece. One of my favorite things about this watch is not only the case shape that is linked to the leather strap with hooded lugs, but also the unique crystal, because it is a crystal that is very intricately faceted, and in its interplay with the mother of pearl dial, it gives a very unique look to this watch. It's a white gold piece, quartz powered, 33 millimeters in diameter, so very much like a discreet dress watch that can make a powerful statement on a woman's or man's wrist. Classic interplay of different shapes between the multifaceted look of the octagonal case with its unique crystal, with its stepped bezel that descends down to a classic, somewhat rounded octagonal shape, and almost bullet-like hooded lugs. A very interesting design that's fraught with a playful tension. There's also a porthole-like date indicator at 6, which, at least in my mind, disrupts the harmony of the dial without at least giving up its symmetry. The seconds hand is a sweep center seconds hand, and it is actually in red, which adds a little bit of a playful element to this otherwise very elegant dress watch. This is the Geragenta G3328.7 at lot 23 of the Art of Time auction by Joopiter. The pre-auction estimate is set between 8,000 to 12,000 in US dollars. Now, I think we have come, at least for me, the last watch of the day from this auction. We're looking at, in fact, the last lot of the auction, lot 27. We kind of started more or less with a celestial Patek, so it feels only right to end on that note as well. You're looking at the Patek Philippe Celestial reference 6104R. And I mentioned before that they have basically entered the new millennium with that statement, Star Caliber 2000. So they have been playing with the variations of that celestial theme, at least ever since. Of course, that was a Grand Complication pocket watch with a rotating celestial chart, lunar phases, orbits, pardon me, as well as the meridian passage of Sirius and the moon. I think in 2002, they released the wristwatch 5102, a predecessor of this watch. And the 6102 came in 2012, I think first in white gold and later in this pink gold version that has a beautiful deep black dial and a very luxurious execution because it has a diamond set bezel, baguette diamonds in fact, and has all the same complications as the previous iterations of this piece in wristwatch form. At the center of the watch are 3 superimposed discs that altogether display or represent the night sky as it's seen from Geneva. The first one in metallic black basically generates the backdrop of the sky. The second disc revolves to show the phases and orbits of the moon. And the third disc depicts the stars and Sirius. The slow and deliberate movement at the center of the dial is, of course, quite romantic and even contemplative. And of course, it is a throwback to the astronomical origins of timekeeping. A very beautiful, beautiful watch that exists, I believe, still in Patek's catalog. I think the list price is a little more than $500,000. Exactly, I will read it now. 506,424 US dollars. That's the list price of this model today in the catalog. Beautiful micro rotor movement from the lineage of caliber 240. In this case, it's caliber 240 LUCLC. Pink gold case, 44 millimeters in diameter. With a thickness that's right around 11.3 millimeters. The bezel is set with 38 baguette cut diamonds. And there are a further 22 baguette cut diamonds on the déployant clasp as well, as you can see here. It's a beautiful look that surrounds in a circle the brand symbol, the Calatrava cross. And obviously, the piece comes with its certificate of origin, the leather folder that holds the rest of the documents, the presentation case, classic wooden, modern Patek presentation case, as well as its outer packaging. This is lot 27 of the Art of Time Rare and Coveted Watches auction, curated by Joopiter, for the first time exclusively focusing on watches. The pre-auction estimate is set between 300,000 to 600,000 US dollars for this most exquisite watch that is highlighted in this auction. I forgot to tell you there's also a pointer date where a red crescent tip indicates the date on the periphery of the dial. A beautiful piece, perhaps too extravagant and certainly too exorbitant in terms of pricing for my liking, but quite stunning nonetheless. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being with me tonight as well. Once again, I didn't reach my goal, but at least I've tried, and I can certainly count on the contributions of many of you in the chat, and certainly the 2 super chats from Bob NYC and Chalk flew up. Thank you so much, both of you. Honestly, without those contributions, I can't see myself doing this on a regular basis. So I genuinely appreciate it. Once again, if you share the link with fellow watch enthusiasts, with other collectors, that's always a great help for me. I'm sure you can do that, and that doesn't cost anything. So please, if you follow me on Instagram as well, and I'm gonna send you that link in the chat right now as well. That's very much appreciated. Any like you give me, any comment you drop there to one of my posts pushes me forward, propels me forward in this community that I'm building, in this momentum I'm generating, purely around passion for wristwatches. So I really appreciate that. Beyond that, of course, if you want to support the channel, all the links are there in the video description. And obviously, the YouTube itself gives you a number of options. And when it comes to the channel memberships, of course, that gives access to exclusive content. If you haven't hit the like button on this video, please do so. And once the live stream ends, feel free to leave a comment. That always pushes me forward in the algorithm. And of course, if you choose to share a question, give me some feedback, share a comment, or even suggestions for future directions, the different kinds of content that you expect from me, various topics that you might want me to tackle that are related to watches, all of that would be immensely helpful as well. So thank you so much again. That's it for tonight. But I really appreciated being with you for these 2 hours. Hopefully, with your encouragement and with your support, we will make these live streams even more regular. And hopefully, they will even be longer and more jam-packed with information, with more interaction. As long as you provide your support, you show your support, I will be here every night and perhaps even more frequently. But I will see you on the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Thank you.